My name is Deb Van Dynen. I'm an Associate Professor of English Education at Hope College, and I'm the Director of the NEA Big Read and Little Read Lakeshore programs. The NEA Big Read and Little Read Lakeshore programs are Hope College programs in partnership with many area libraries, businesses, institutions, and organizations. The purpose of the NEA Big Read and Little Read Lakeshore programs is for people to come together around a story. However, it's not just coming together and reading the same story. We really want people to use the book and its topics and themes as a springboard to listen and learn from each other, to learn more about our community and the world at large. Come join us this year as together we read An American Sunrise, a book of poems by Joy Harjo. For our Little Read program, we invite you to read Fry Bread, a Native American family story by Kevin Millard. Please visit our website, bigreadlakeshore.com, to find out more about our events, our programs, our guiding questions, and more about who we are and what we do along the lakeshore.
We also want to thank Sight Eye Clinic for the generous and continued support of our program over the years, and for this event in particular. Although poetry is a new thing for our program this year, we are excited for the new experiences and discussion it brings to our program. Jack Ridl has been an incredible supporter and friend of the Big Read, especially this year, and we are grateful for his expertise. Jack Ridl taught at Hope College's English department for 37 years, and during that time, established the Visiting Writers Series. This series brings award-winning writers to Hope College to draw the local community to literacy. After 15 years of leading the series, Ridl passed the baton, but in 2006, the series was named to be the Jack Ridl Visiting Writers Series to honor his commitment to the community. He's received multiple awards from Hope College, including the Hope Award, and was chosen by students twice to give the commencement address. He's a recipient of the Carnegie Foundation's Michigan Professor of the Year, and the author of several national award-winning collections, as well as poetry textbooks and anthologies. Jack Ridl is a Saugatuck local and beloved by the West Michigan community. He has a unique ability to make poetry accessible and interesting to all ages, and we cannot wait to hear the expertise that he shares with us tonight. Without further ado, here's Jack Ridl.
We couldn't understand you. Turn the speaker system on.
We've tried.
You guys complaining already?
Wait
till it's over.
That's what I need.
I can only talk so loud. You can't hear me in the back? You're lucky. You just sit next to you. That's him.
We've called campus safety and CIT, and there's something a little bit wrong with this microphone tonight. So we are getting Jack to stand as close as possible.
And if you want to move up a little bit, boy, please do, because I'm not going to talk any louder than this.
So please do move closer, seriously. This is not, I'm so sorry.
I'm not going to talk any louder than this. If you can hear this, then okay. Fine there. Okay?
What did you say?
Shut up. Most everybody's been educated from here up, but there are two parts of the human experience that are seldom, if at all, educated after the 6th grade. One is feeling, emotion, and we're an illiterate culture when it comes to feeling. 2, imagination. Imagination's gone by grade 6. It's gone. And yet that is the way the indigenous culture lives. They understand the importance of it, and they know that there's really no other way to live. Otherwise, you just think like everybody else. The only thing that distinguishes you from another person is your imagination. We all feel grief. We all think the same unless we're in two different viewpoints. So that's 2. But each one of your imaginations is completely different. and yet it's completely ignored. It's not educated, it's etc. So tonight I want to see if we can have some fun. And that's part of the imagination is about. If we can have some fun. I want to start it off with some fun because it's a poem by Billy Collins, which is a poem that pretty much tells the story of all of us when we were taught poetry. It's called Introduction to Poetry. I asked them to take a poem and hold it up to the light like a color slide, or press it here against its hive. I say drop a mouse into a poem. Watch him probe his way out. Or walk inside the poem's room and feel the walls for a light switch. I want them to water ski across the surface of a poem, waving at the author's name on the shore. But all they want to do is tie the poem to a chair with a rope and torture confession out of it. They begin beating it with a hose to find out what it really means. And another pal of mine is Brian Doyle. And a poem is constructed in such a way that you get to fulfill it. We get to fulfill it. Now in school, we were probably asked what the poem meant, and then once probably the teacher explained it, we went on to the next poem. So we never really experienced it. We just found out what it meant. And that's not an experience. So, here's a wonderful example of a little kid who was talking to Brian Doyle and asked, as Brian writes, once again, a child asks me suddenly, what is a poem? And once again, I find myself riffing freely and happily without the slightest scholarly expertise or knowledge. But I'm entranced by how poems can hint and suggest and point toward things deeper than their words. You know what a poem is? It's an owl feather. An owl feather. That's what I say. It's not the owl, but it intimates owlness. See what I mean? You imagine the owl. Silent flight, razors for fingers, a wriggle of a mouse tail slurped up right quick like the last strand of angel hair, the startle of moonlight, a fox watching from the thicket. All that from a feather. It's like an owl is in the feather. A poem is a small thing with all manner of vigor in it. Poor poems only have a writer in them, expressing him or herself. But better ones have a way more in them than the writer knew or knows. This poem, for example, amazingly, has owls in it. Who knew we'd see a flurry of owls this evening? Now, I could leave right now and you know absolutely everything you need to know about how to read. But what it means is your imagination has to take over. And the poem is so kind Because it says, you're not out of it. You're the one who makes it. I just give you hints. That's all I do, is give you hints. It's made of implications. Everything in the poem implies something that your imagination gets to complete. So let's try one. Let's look at this first poem on your sheet. It's called My Brother a Star. And now, one thing I always like to say before any kind of talk like this, and I'm going to be yakking at you, but please feel free to interrupt and disagree. Every single thing I tell you has been disagreed with. There was a colleague of mine in the English department here who would say to this day, I, Jack, have never written a poem. Not one. In fact, I misled hundreds and hundreds of students. So don't be afraid to disagree. I can handle it. I can handle it for 38 years. I can handle it tonight. You seem very nice. So your disagreement will probably be gently put. Okay, I'm going to read My Brother a Star. And some of you are very tired of my reading My Brother a Star. But I'm going to read it again. And I want you to listen to the music and read it with your imagination. Okay? You can't, this is what you do in all your other classes, or this is what we do in school. We do this. Here we're going to do this. Okay? Here we're going to do this. Oh, it works great. Okay? Oops. My mother was pregnant through the first 9 games of the season. By the way, I'll preface it by saying that my father was a basketball coach. My mother was pregnant through the first 9 games of the season. We were 7-2. There should be a dash there. I waited for a brother. My father kept to the hard schedule. Waking the morning of the 10th game, I thought of skipping school and shooting hoops. Can you see him? Everybody got that little guy? You like him already? My cornflakes were ready. Can you see them? Soggy. There was a note. The baby may come today. Get your hair cut. We were into January, and the long December snow had turned to slush. Feel it? See it? Slow down. It's not a report. It's not a textbook. It's not a newspaper. You have to learn to crawl through the phone. The wind is mean. It is tonight. My father was gone. I looked in on my mother still asleep and hoped she'd be okay. Can you see it? Good little guy. I watched her, dreamed her dream. John at forward, me at guard. He doesn't know a lot about how long it takes for his brother to grow up. He learned fast. At noon, my father picked me up at the playground. My team was ahead by 6. We drove toward the gym. Mom's okay, he said, and tapped his fist. See? Tapped his fist. against my leg. The Plymouth ship that rode the hood pulled us down the street. The baby died, he said. I felt my feet pressed hard against the floorboard. I put my elbow on the door handle, my head on my hand, and watched the town. Counters 5 and 10, Walker's Hardware, Jarrett's Bakery, Shaker's Barbershop, the bank. Dick Green and Carl Stacy waved. It was the boy. We drove back to school. You gonna coach tonight? Yes. Mom's okay? Yes, she's fine, sad, but fine. She said for you to grab a sandwich after school. I'll see you at the game. Don't forget about your hair. I got out, walked in late to class. We're doing geography, Mrs. Wilson said, page 97, the prairie. That night in bed, I watched this kid firing in jump shots from everywhere in the court. He cut left, I'd feed him a fine pass he'd hit. I dribbled down the side, spot him in the corner, thread ball to a crowd with soft hands, and he'd launch a star into the lights where it would pause, then gently drop, fall through the cheers and through the net. The game never ended. I fell into sleep. My hair was short. We were 8 and 2. Now let's look back at it and have an add to what I hope for you gets to be an even richer experience. That's very accessible, that poem, right? You all know what happened. We don't have to, if I gave a quiz right now and said what happened, you know, get an A. We won't worry about that. But let's talk about some of the things let's notice some of the things that are implications, because they can be fun, because you realize something, you discover something. And one of the things I want to point out is often asked, why do poets write in lines? Now there are prose poems, but why do poets write in lines? Well, the easiest answer is it's a lot more fun. We really have it with the prose writers because we get to play. We get to play with those lines. We can do different things with it. You know, there are 14 ways to break a line. The end of the line is called a break. And there's 14 ways to do that. So one thing we have is 14 different ways to break a line. But two of the most important ones are that this line anticipates the next line, but you don't know what it's going to be. And you can't do that in prose, right? So this line, the line that follows, you don't know what it's going to be until you get there. But that little line break can lead you there. The other thing it does is it creates the movement of the poem, the way it moves. And the third thing that out of the 14 that's probably more important is emphasis. It puts an emphasis on it. In prose, the sentence is, it was a boy. In the poem, it's, it was. It was. Here. And then it also anticipates what it was. Because back in those days, he didn't really know. He assumed it was going to be a boy. And it was. But it could have been a girl. So both those things are happening there. It's propelling you into the next line. It's anticipating. It's emphasizing the word was. Very simple word, but heartbreaking. content, what else would it be? If it's not heartbreaking, you need a sensitivity test. So that's a key thing. And what's fun about looking at a poem is seeing what is that artist doing? How is that artist working with those lines? Another one is the word still. I love that word. And by the way, when I started writing this poem, I just thought, well, I'll write this poem. I forgot about this event. And I just completely broke out. I had no idea how far down into my ankles I had shoved my grief. And the second time I tried to write it, I broke down. The third time, and the fourth, and the fifth, and the sixth, and about the seventh, that it started to show up. That's sort of behind the scenes stuff. Sometimes it's important to know that when you look at a poem, that there's an investment going on by the poet, or the painting by the artist, or the composition by the composer. So there's the word still. I looked in on my mother still. So I looked in on my mother still. I still looked in on my mother. He's a good little guy. Even if he wants to skip school and shoot hoops, he's going to look in on his mom. He's going to still look in on her. And he's going to look in on her still. She is still. And it's going to foreshadow, right? Still work. And it just leads to the very next line. She's still asleep. She continues, which is another use of that word. It's a wonderful word, isn't it? So you're taking advantage of the multiple definitions, right, of that word. Let me toss it out, even though everybody will get shy, I know. But where's something else in here that you can see you're really fulfilling it? Like, I'm handing you that owl feather, but you're seeing an owl. You see any other places in there where it's really not there? You created it.
I like how you use my father at the end of the line. You do it 3 times, and it's just my father. And you can pull a lot of it. I can pull it like, well, my father, but nothing your father. It just kind of hangs there, and then you bring it into the next line.
Yes. Yeah, the father's a major figure in the poem. It's also a poem about discovering being alone in the world, even though there are other people around. And almost always out at the end of the line hangs figure of father or the first person pronoun I, sort of dangles out there, all that stuff. Anybody else see something? Just make it fun for yourself. It's not there, but you fulfill it.
Another line breaks begins with one thought. I'm not sure what it is going to be.
You don't know, right? It of what? Yeah, in the textbook, that's called anticipation. What are we anticipating? Yes, I saw that.
Yeah, I think at the beginning, if there's a contrast to like being excited to shoot hoops, to like the end, the contrast to like dreaming of someone else shooting hoops instead of it actually being a little more.
Yeah, you recognize that it's gone from reality to its own imagination. Right? My poet friends say this, way back then, is when this person started becoming a poet, because he survived. That's how he survived, right? He survived by imagining his brother. I've been looking for a brother ever since. I have. I really have. And where is that in the poem? That game never ended. That's the game that never ended. I'm looking for that right.
You said about looking for it. Start getting the felt your feet press hard against the floor.
What's he feel?
Yeah, you do something was wrong. And you're still looking.
Okay. So it does, you felt shocked. It doesn't say, I was shocked. It says, I felt my feet. You filled that in. You knew what happened. Maybe unconsciously, but that's what you did, because it wasn't told to you. Right? There's probably nobody here who thought, oh, I felt my feet press hard against the floorboard. He must love doing that. He probably does that all the time. No, nobody does that.
Yeah, I was touched a little by the way that Bob and Andrew handled the grief.
Great. And what was it that did that?
The way that he was going to go back and coach, just keeping on and keeping on.
Right. He didn't go back to the hospital.
No. He didn't love his son.
That's probably right. That's probably a cultural comment too. In the sports world. You keep going. So he's probably a victim in the sports world. How's he treat his son? How do you know?
He just didn't.
He did.
He didn't. He
What was the one thing he did?
Said, get a haircut.
He just tapped his fist.
Okay.
That's it. Did he hug him? Did he take him out for a milkshake? No. Did he take him to the hospital to see the mother? No. So all those things you're recognizing, and if you really pay that kind of attention, it brings the best out of you because you're experiencing empathy. That's really probably the greatest human attribute. If you can empathize, you start feeling with it. Do you think you wanted to go back to school? How do you know you didn't? There's a terrible moment in here, and you have to fill it in. It's when he walks into class. When did he walk in? All right, later. What happened? It's not there. It's not in the poem. Come on, all of you have felt it. Come on. What do you feel like? What happened when he walked in late to class? It's not a test. Something terrible happened when he walked in late to class. What was it?
Everyone loved it.
Everybody looked at it. It's an awful, awful experience. Everybody wonders where he's been. Is he going to have to say it? What's he like? It's only in 5th grade, for heaven's sake. My brother died. What did Mrs. Wilson say to him? Age 97, right? What's that about Mrs. Wilson?
She doesn't know.
What did she not do?
That's why.
Yeah. She was so kind. She just let him walk in and sit down. She didn't bother him at all. She just told him where they were. Age 97. Why is it the prairie?
Desolate.
Desolate.
Flat.
Flat. That's a key thing. And I was thinking about it. And Mrs. Wilson was my teacher, but I don't remember what we were studying. But with the poem, you want everything to work together the same way. So if it was math, I don't know, I'd have to figure something out. But I think I'd try to change it to geography. You know why, don't you? If you have a trauma, your inner and outer geography is not the same. It all changes. Nothing looks the same. Nothing. And then I had to choose a type of geography, so it fit the prairie. Flat. What happens when you're in a trauma? Everything, you go flat. Flat. I feel flat. We even have a cliche about it. Flat. Right? That's where it comes from. It comes from the emotion. How that word got adapted. What's not in the poem that's actually part of the poem? Anybody notice? See, this little simple poem is more complicated. And I hope you don't think I'm being overly arrogant about talking about my own poem. I always tell people I want to talk about my own poems because I don't have a right to talk about somebody else's.
What do you mean by Plymouth ship?
Oh, the Plymouth, that's a Ridl.
Okay, thanks.
Gives you the time period. When he started stealing ornaments. How big? Where does he live? Small town. How do we know? Everybody's got a name. Yeah, all the places. There's no Best Buy or anything that they drove by. Right. Why does it hurt? Why is Dick Green and Carl Stacy, what are they doing in there? It just comes out of nowhere. I mean, out of nowhere. It doesn't even follow anything. It's just suddenly there they are, waving. Why? What's that feel like?
Yeah, everyone's like looking at you and noticing the trauma you're dealing with.
Pardon?
Maybe everyone's noticing the trauma that the boy is dealing with and looking at them.
Well, the only person who knows is the boy. Nobody else knows. Dad knows, mother knows. There's no public knowing that. Yeah.
Everything that is the same, especially this last drug.
Yeah, and what happens if nobody knows it? Dick Green and Carl Stacy waved. Does that feel good? No. It feels awful. That's what Dante said was the worst kind of suffering, to suffer amidst those who aren't. Those who are happy. Everybody walked across campus and had the hope, hi, how are you? Fine, my brother died. You have to be careful. Be careful. So that's why they're there. Some might say this isn't a poem, it's a story, but actually if you look at it, nothing is written in the poem in a narrative form, which means this comes out of this, which comes out of this, which comes out of this. It's all jumping from one scene to another, one moment to another. So it's really a hodgepodge, a collection of lyric moments. And let's go back to Dad, as you brought up Dad. How does he? How comfortable is he with his feelings?
Not very comfortable.
How do you know?
He has a lot of short sentences of hers.
Wonderful.
Says, yes, she's fine, sad, but fine.
Right. Look at the next sentence.
He said, we need a ground sandwich after school.
And what a difference, huh? See what he is comfortable with? It's all done by the sentence structure. Bam. How's Mom? I think I have a different one from you guys. Yeah, Mom's okay. Yes, period. Boom. She's fine, period. Sad, period. Fine, period. She said, women note where the man is written. She said, and then it relaxes because it's practical, right? For you to grab a sandwich after school. See, the poet's really trusting you to have a good time inside. What really looks like what really is a very easy poem to read. It's just that there's a lot more going on in it. then that easiness makes one perhaps think, right? Yeah. Well, the game's not there.
Hey, breaking tune up, man.
That's right. What a happy ending. What a happy ending. It's a completely different kid in the end. And how for you do you know that? It mattered earlier. What you talk about a kid changing. My hair was short. We were 8 too. So his whole understanding of what matters has been rocked. You know, it'd be wrong if we said that it was 7-3. If they lost the game, that'd be cheesy. We know by the end of the poem what the poem's dealing with. Now we can go back and even look at the beginning of it. There are a couple of places that foreshadow everything falling apart, shall we say. What are those? You can just look at it. It's just fun to see it. I'm not putting you on the spot. I'm just trying to illustrate that every single thing in the poem is thought out, works together. So early on in the poem, there are two moments that imply that this is not going to be a good day.
First off, she's pregnant, 9 games into the season.
Well, that's a joke in there. They're 7-2. They have 9 games played, and she's 9 months pregnant, right? The cornflakes are soggy. What's the other one?
Slush.
The other one is snow is turned to what? Slush. Yeah. Wind was mean. So let's say, I don't remember what I had for breakfast that morning. Let's say somebody said, well, it's a sports poem. You ought to have that be Wheaties. Wouldn't that be awful? Oh my God, you wouldn't trust the poem at all, would you? Wouldn't trust it at all? No. What if it was Captain Crunch? Wouldn't that be awful? Because then you're up there saying, you remember from the poem, he could say Captain Crunch, and I go, oh my God, he died! And you remember Captain Crunch. So I have to change the cereal, make it something on it, you know, just, no big deal, just gloss over cornflakes, that's kind of easy. Doesn't steal the show or anything. Yeah. Let's go back to what's not in the poem, in the game. Imagine, he had to go to that game. He had to sit in those stands. Did you? You get to picture that. Now, my dad was a Division I coach, and there's 25,000 people screaming, cheering, yelling, and this little guy sitting up there. I am still. I'll see you at the game. That's a coach. Keep going. It's also the 50s. Keep going. 1950s. Well, that's probably overdoing everything that's in there. Unless you have a question or something you'd like to ask about it.
I think it's mother, she's dreamed, he's seen. I watched her dream her dream.
Yeah.
And it's him and his brother playing, and she's envisioning what mom probably do. Then to the end, there's a long, long time. I interpret that not just his dream that night, but probably the rest, you might have said the rest of your life, that there's this dream of playing. So it wasn't his necessarily his dream when he was before the child, the baby that was mom's dream, it was his dream.
Yeah, and of course, he's very naive about that. Mom's not going to, it's going to be a baby, She's not really dreaming about it. He's projecting that on the mom as a kid would. I don't know about that naive. I guess so. There's a little tiny word in here, just so we have a sense that even the tiniest word can matter. And it's at the end. It says, I fell. What is it? Into. That's different than I fell asleep, right? Geez, by now I figured at least half of you'd be gone. I fell into, right? That's different. You ever have that where it just feels, you don't even remember? Yeah? It just feels like sleep kindly came and finally took you away from this imaginary world you're trying to create. Give you a break. Let you sleep.
I like a dream.
His dream's lovely, yeah. Well, he's similar with his brother as he is with his mother. He's gonna pass the ball, let his brother be a star. Not him. Well, let's look at another one and see if we can do something similar to that with it. Let's see. Let's look at the one about the dog. What? You wouldn't want to be a dog? This actually happened. Because when my father would lose a game, he'd come home and the first thing he'd do is look at our dog and go, what's so bad about a dog's life? That became a part of family lore from then on. What's so bad about a dog's life? Let's find out. This one I'm going to try to shut up a bit and see what is it that you notice or care about or feel. But don't, again, it's not about what it means. Poems are about being. That's a good way to think of it. They're not so much about meaning. They're about being. Each poet is putting down something about being human. And you get a sense of, gee, I'm not as alone as I thought I was. Or perhaps you get some comfort. Or maybe you get a realization from it. But you have to slow down. It's just, you can't read too many of them at once. It's not a novel. I could read about 3 or 4 and that's it. And that's after 50 years of doing this. Okay, what? You wouldn't want to be a dog? A loved dog? A cherished dog? A dog sleeping on the couch, on the throw rug, porch, on a sunny summer day, on the back seat, on the way out west or to the pharmacy. There's not much you'd need to do, nothing you'd have to buy. Breakfast, there, on time. Dinner, there, though you may need to bark. Snack, sit, or roll over, and they clean up. 4 walks a day, never caring that they are bored by the same scenes. You're busy smelling yourself into worlds they will never know. Worlds carried on the air and always new. Scents hidden under moldering leaves along a log composting itself into the earth. It's an olfactory feast, a glory unknown to all but dogs. And you're even welcome to an anus newly met, or a neighbor. You don't have to vote. You don't have to keep up. You don't need the latest pleated pants, a pair of shoes to wear to church. Your God is always there in every pat and scratch. Not one worry about the economy, the weather, getting a good night's sleep, the Iowa caucus. You never need to say a thing. You wag your tail. You will never know that anything will happen. You won't know one day you won't be here. Okay, anybody want to start us off with just a reaction? Everything's very clear again. I want to make sure we know that. One of the reasons we often think poetry isn't clear is because we're taught poetry up until about, the poetry that we get taught is the poetry up to about 1940. And so it's written in the language of their time, right? So that's Shakespeare language. That's St. Vincent Millay. It's Emily Dickinson language. It's not our language. These are written in our language. That's what makes us weak. So we get a kind of an idea about a poem as being something that's inaccessible and it has to be explained. I don't understand the John Donne poem, but once it's explained to me, then I can experience it. But in all likelihood, if I lived back in the day of John Donne, I would understood it. Those were probably words that were fairly commonly used. You might not understand this. I don't know. Any reactions? What struck you? What hit you, Jared?
I really appreciate all the descriptions and sentiments, only about what Martin Catholic, but argue with, But I'm very thankful to be a human being and not a dog. And the reason why, I always say, this makes me towards that is that if we have here, we will never know that anything will happen. You won't know one day, you won't not see it. You won't not see it, is that correct?
That's right.
It might be a typo. You won't know one day you won't be here. It shouldn't have the not.
That's the way I read it anyways.
Yeah, you won't know you won't be here. It's the way it's
So, see, that's interesting because only we human beings, I think, can have an understanding, because when it's not to have an understanding. Yeah. We know we're going to die, but we also do know that we will be back again. That it's possible. And we can have that,
Some people do.
Some do. I'm not saying everybody does, but a few.
Right.
But, so I'm just thinking about that.
No, I'd rather be the dog.
I'm intrigued by this because so many people spend so much of their life thinking about dogs. I mean, I think about my dog all the time. We talk about the
Me too. She's home alone right now, and I'm just really concerned.
I don't know if anybody else found this during COVID. They think just slept all the time if we were home. I think you're right, it just sleeps. I'm all nervous about what he's doing, and if he's okay, and he's got enough toys, and the house is okay.
Oh, she saved us during the, quarantine and isolation. She didn't know what was going on.
But then we went out the other day to that wall at the fire bed at the pond.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful walk. Go down to the gas station there. And my dog was so happy doing one thing. It was smelling everything in the world.
Oh, yeah.
We were weeding it, and there was just two different senses going on.
Oh, my God, yeah. C.S. Lewis said he'd love to be a dog for a day, just wants to know what all that is. All those smells. Yeah. But it is, I think Jerry's right, I think it's probably more about the poem itself, but the dog isn't really, it's more about us. What we have to carry. This also has a lot of those things at the end of the line, sends it on into the next line, right? Or it just stops, and they clean up. I like that, just stopping that line. You know, spend some time while you have to clean up, and they clean up. Well, I'm glad I found that typo. Let me stop it. It hasn't come out that way. It'd be really nice just to have, just all you have to do is wag your tail. Everybody knows it. Right? We have to be terrified all the time, you know, like I am up here. What are you thinking of me? You just think I was the coolest thing. Nothing to worry about. We're supposed to worry. Everybody's thinking about it. Oh my God. What was that program like you went to? Oh, he was screwing around up there. So arrogant, thought his own poem. I should get those student evaluations. I know how to get even. Sure. Scary. Scary being an us. Anything our dog's scared of is a sudden loud noise. Other than that, I don't know of anything she jumps over. Well, it's almost time to say goodnight. Let's look at repairing the house. And this one lends itself to that pretty well. And it also, when I first wrote this poem, it was all in one big, everything ran together. You know. Repairing the house. You know, if you have a house, there's always somebody who says, you know, if you don't fix this, this is going to be what's going to happen. I mean, the roof's going to cave in. And it's always a negative consequence. So the poet tends to try to find what's another way to look at it. What's another way to look at it? And that's what this poem is based on. You know? Okay. Repairing the house. We will learn the house can live without our changes. We will listen to its language. The cracks along the stairway, they are sentences. We will read what they say when we go up, again when we walk back down. When we leave our sleep, our bed will hold our place as the floor creaks under us. If we fix the broken window, then we will open it. The other windows rise on their tracks. That's enough. One staying shut tight will still bring light for any day. The others the breeze. And we will learn to be with the ivy straying along the back brick walls, twisting itself into the mortar, each spring a chunk or two falling into the hollow. We will feel a draft under the porch door. We could block the cold from sliding toward our feet. Instead, we will wear socks, ones you made, while we sit facing each other, reading on the sofa, its stuffing shifting under us. The pillows giving way to what is left. Anything strike anybody? Or have a question asked about?
You better fix it in house now.
It sounds comfortable.
I'm sorry?
It sounds comfortable.
It is, isn't
I just can live with these things, I still get breeze, I get light, I get comfy. You sound what you need.
it? Yeah, everyday life in your home. Chill out, relax, you know, that's just, you don't need to have it be quick. The whole thing's built around a pond, too, right? By the end of the poem, the couple have been what? Repaired. The fact that they didn't fix the house repaired the couple. And they wear socks. And they wear a pair of socks. So it's turning everything, flip-flopping the notion of repairing and turning it into the couple. And the same, then there's lots of stuff at the end of the lines that we've already talked about. If you go through, you could probably tell how I read it, that that's how it's constructed. Now remember, I prefaced this by saying, when I first wrote it, it was all in one big piece. So what's the difference? What does breaking it into these create or suggest or imply?
Absolutely right. Lost in those paragraphs.
Each one of those.
Things.
Yeah.
Each one's like each day or each room of your home. It's something, each of
There's something in each one. Yeah. Did you know that the word stanza is actually Italian and it means, it's translated as room. Room. Stanza means room. What's in this room? What
It
there?
breaks down like I get to the poem. You know, like prose is telling you stuff all the time. Poetry is not having a conversation that says this and it makes you fill it in and it takes you down a little bit more.
Yeah.
But he has the one
There's
thing
just
telling you.
this way of moving. Ezra Pound came up with a great way of talking about how these lines are written. He said, write in the musical phrase. You can probably feel that. There's a lot of sound. One time I was interviewed and the person said, you know, nothing you've written is a poem. And I said, geez, I wish I'd have known that about 35 years ago. Wasted my life here. And I said, actually, all these poems rhyme. And he said, no, none of them rhyme. And I said, actually, not only do all the poems rhyme, but all the words in all the poems rhyme. Which basically means your ear is tuned to the way the sounds of the words work together to approximate music. It's like you're stretching for it to be music. You know, you're trying to get there. Well, why are they two-line stanzas? It's a pair, of course. The poem's about the couple. And those two-line stanzas are called what? English majors? Couplets. So, of course, I looked at that thing when it was all jammed together. It was like the poem was yelling at me. You idiot! It's got to be in couplets, you dude. Come on. Yes.
I like comfortable, but that you could have fixing your hand, go to the door, put on the sauce that she made,
Yeah.
and then facing each other,
Right.
together, on the couch,
Right.
and it wasn't just that on together for a long time, because the stuff is shifting and those are getting more.
Yeah, everything's getting older, falling apart, doesn't matter.
But it's
What matters is they're facing each other. He's wearing those socks you made. Fix those cracks going up those stairs. Why not turn them into sentences? Use your imagination. You know, why do they have to be fixed? What difference does it make? There's cracks in the wall. So what? In America, we have to fix everything. When our daughter I'll shut up with this, but when our daughter had this fellowship to paint for a year in France, and she, first time we went over to visit her there, she said, "Daddy, let's go for a walk." And I oh boy, we're in Paris, you know, what are we going to see? So we walk about 1 block, and she turns down this alley, and she says, "Look." And I look up and I go, "What?" She says, "Look at all the flower pots all along. They're all cracked." Isn't that weird? We have to go to Home Depot and get a new pot. You know, the French, they know. How much more charming all of those cracked pots. Well, I hope you had a good time. I did. Thank you.
Thank you everybody for joining us tonight, and thank you for allowing us to truly take another look at poetry tonight. Really appreciated you allowing us to explore your poetry. Again, we apologize for the technical difficulties tonight, and we thank you all for coming. For more information on the rest of our program, head to bigreadlakeshore.com. Tomorrow, Lydia Roman Soldier will be joining us at 7 p.m. virtually. We hope to see you there. We hope you have a good rest of your evening. Thank you.